Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Uncuckables. We're back from a week off, but that was mainly due to Dave being 2 weeks late, or 2 shows late, but you're back tonight, David.
I'm actually a week early. I wasn't supposed to be on tonight. Yeah.
And we've got joining us Nick Patterson.
How are you? Good to be here.
And over in the controlled bordered west now, Stephen Wells.
Hey.
Have you been to a yellow vest protest, Stephen?
I'm going to one on Sunday, but before that bit of news, I go and get my last professional haircut tonight. After I've got to go a little bit earlier so I can actually get the last professional haircut in before I can no longer, in good conscience, go and get a haircut ever again in Western Australia, because tomorrow they bring in the new regulations where you have to give you have to be contact traced in every store you go in tomorrow.
Oh, you mean surveilled? Surveilled,
yes.
Yeah.
So they are. This big mop here will be the regular feature from now on after tomorrow. Like one more good haircut.
You could take care of it yourself, Stephen.
Well, at least
I'll have to. Yeah.
We better work out who's who now, because once it becomes divided like that, we'll know all the people with the bad haircuts. They're okay, and they're the people that can go.
Nick, what's the deal with your hair while we're focusing on it? Are you receding, or do you just shave it?
I just shave it. No, I'm not receding. Okay. So I think I've got a good. I might grow a majestic mop later. You know, I'm thinking about it, growing some hair. You know, I've even got a bit of this growing because some of the boys at the gym, they're growing beards, and they've sort of suggested that I should grow a beard. And I thought, and I thought it would be good to grow a beard before I go all grey, and then I want to see what it looks like. So, and then I'll be in disguise too. People won't know who I am, covered behind this big beard that I'm going to grow. That's the plan.
It's time to sing that little excerpt from the Pink Floyd song. There is no pain, you are receding.
You'll get us a copyright
infringement notice.
Yeah, which we're already demonetized, so it won't have an impact on because this channel was never monetized. But we keep getting, and it's especially when you're on the show, Stephen, we get a age restriction on our streams.
It's because I keep saying cunt.
Oh, you said it again.
That will do it.
We never sold ourselves as a family-friendly show. We've always said that we've modelled the Uncuckables on the old footy show, but thankfully there's been no Sam Newman pants-down moments on the show to date.
There's still time.
Oh, do you need me to oblige?
No. Hello to everyone in the YouTube and DLive chats, and we're also back on Entropy, so you can go over there to ask us a question or send through a super chat. We did promote that Jarrad Searby would be on the panel tonight, but he's unreachable, which we all were saying the most likely explanation is that he's been arrested again.
He can represent himself again. Sounds like he did all right.
Well, I had the pleasure of finally meeting up with him on my weekend trip to New South Wales, and I crossed the bridge where he got arrested that day when the border permit system first came in. And if we go back to the police at the time said, "Oh, we can help you apply for a permit," but Jarrad wanted to make a statement that this is a border I cross nearly every day, and you're telling me I need a permit to cross it. He's appealing his $600 fine from the Wodonga Magistrates Court, but it was funny to cross it because all the border checkpoints are gone, so it's like it was never there. But being in both Albury and Wodonga, it's clear that there's now some sort of wall still there caused by COVID and the respective government responses. In Wodonga, they still have the cultural masks everywhere, even though it was 40 degrees on Saturday. But in New South Wales, nowhere to be seen. But of course, you have to check in everywhere with the QR codes, the QA codes for contact tracing purposes. So that still sucks.
Yeah, I've even seen the some of the MMA gyms that are running again, and they've got guys like doing wrestling drills with masks on, and you can't. That's the most unhygienic thing I could think of, to have a mask on you. People sweat and spit and possibly blood ending up on the mask and staying on the mask. It's hard to wipe it off the mask. Yeah, and I just and it's like they're just knowingly going along with stupidity, because they know it's not going to help them. They're not worried about anything, but they're just like, hey, yeah, go on, yeah.
I thought it was just a Melbourne thing, because I've seen that here in Melbourne, especially in the city, Melbourne. Like, people are still wearing masks. At first I thought it was just people who are just coming out of the shops, but I see people walking down the street. I see people driving and they're still wearing masks. Like, we've been told you don't have to wear it anymore. People still doing it. It's the only explanation I can find is that people enjoy their slavery.
Or they're still shit scared of this virus, and they shit their pants whenever the government announces that they found more coronavirus in the shit. They found some corona shit in Daylesford, near Hepburn, and
they're literally checking up poo. Yes,
there's been 0 cases that have emerged from testing areas where they found the shit, because it's most likely viral shedding, where somebody who previously had the coronavirus has taken a massive dump, and there's they've had viral sheds in that dump.
Can I read you something out of straight from the Rockefeller Institute from 2010, the Lockstep program. I quoted this the other day. I put it in my book, and I put an excerpt of it up online the other day, and it just suddenly resonated with me of just how much further it's gone since that time when I was actually researching this back in March. So the Lockstep program, for those who don't know, is a document, basically scenario planning, and what they say about scenario planning is: we believe scenario planning has great potential for use in philanthropy to identify unique interventions, to simulate and rehearse important decisions that could have profound implications, and highlight previously undiscovered areas of connection and intersection. More importantly, by providing methodological structure that helps us focus on what we don't know instead of what we already know, scenario planning allows us to achieve impact more effectively. So that's what they're saying about what the document was there for, what the scenario planning is for. But in particular, the Lockstep program was a simulation of a future pandemic and how they thought the world should respond to it, or how they imagined the world would respond to it. So this is a bit I'd like to most importantly quote to you. The Chinese government quick imposition and enforcement of mandatory quarantine for all citizens, as well as its near instant and near hermetic sealing off of all borders, saved millions of lives, stopping the spread of the virus earlier than in other countries and enabling a swifter post-pandemic recovery. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. And here's the important bit. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified in order to protect themselves from the spread of increasingly global problems, from pandemics and transnational terrorism to environmental crises and rising poverty. Leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power.
So was this written as a prediction? Like this was written in, when was it written?
So it was written in 2010. So it's basically called scenario planning. So they basically look at a possible future event. They do a scenario around it, and then they draw conclusions from it, which they pass on to world leaders. They war game it basically, yeah. So
they plan a future event, and then they create the their response, and then they say it's just planning, but it's the other way around.
But it's the interesting thing about that is I find that it's not only just predicting that the authoritarian rule during it, but that after the pandemic has gone away, that not only will it continue, but it will become more authoritarian afterwards.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we're seeing now, especially in Western Australia, where we're getting all this QR code rubbish coming in now. We've not had an official case for 6 months, so.
Oh, but it's part of our culture now, these QR code systems, and even the alleged freedom-loving conservatives, they still think that the QR codes are a good idea for contact tracing. This is Sophie Ellsworth of News Corp, she's been critical of Dan Andrews' lockdown, but she says happy to do QR check-in when dining out, but some restaurants are making this an arduous task. Went through 10 plus steps just to order, and then my payment method wouldn't work. In the end, I asked the waiter for a paper menu and she wrote down my order. Shouldn't be this hard. No, I don't want restaurant newsletters to join their loyalty program, my banking details safe, or be forced to download a food app. Just bring back pen and paper orders. And I'm talking about pen and paper for ordering, not contact tracing.
Dumb bitch.
Yeah, all said.
Because she was horrified that Dan Andrews wasn't adopting a mandatory QR code system. Another one of her previous tweets is like, I saw a restaurant, they just had the pen and paper lying around, and people weren't instructed to write down their details.
Well, we've I think Nick and I, we've talked about this with relation to the grilling that Daniel Andrews received at the hands of the Bulldog. What's her name again? The chick from Sky.
Peter Credlin.
Peter Credlin. So it's great theatre, and the Liberal Party and the Labor Party get to sort of play politics over this, and conservatives get to jump up and down and support Peter Credlin. But at the end of the day, all it's doing is supporting the narrative that these coronavirus lockdowns are necessary.
Or that the coronavirus itself is actually real and proven to exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, a friend of mine is from Ireland, and we're having a chat about it, and he said, look, said, the Irish people, they're not really protesting that much. He said they're just not going along with the directives and the rules. They're like not complying, which I think is the best way to win. Just everyone says we're not doing it. I don't see that happening here. I think we're going to have to, use some more extreme measures, maybe stand up, get groups together to start fighting against them, a bit more litigation. But if the whole country, and Ireland, I think, they probably have the numbers there to just go, because it's the way they are culturally. We're not going to go along with that. No, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and it'll be a bit of fun for them. But I actually, and you're talking about the speaking about the test or proof, but this disease being proven that it exists. I was speaking to a friend of mine whose wife's a doctor, and I said, that the disease hasn't been, or the virus, because the virus and disease is different, okay? But the virus hasn't been isolated. They don't really know if it even exists in these people that they're testing. And he said, oh, okay. And then so he went and asked his wife, and his wife said, no, what they're doing is they're testing for material that is often present, with similar types of viruses. So that's all it is. So they can they just get numbers, just pull the numbers out of a hat, and this is the stupidity of it, is that people are going along with stupidity, knowing that it's not true, just to get by so they can have their stuff. Oh, look, I want to have my comforts, I want to have all of this. But if you're going to go along with it, you're going to just literally allow the most disgusting people, because they are disgusting people, because all they do is lie and steal. Lying thieves, that's what they are. We should call these politicians lying thieves, because they lie to us, tell us lies, and then they steal from us. And what they're stealing is our rights, which is a bigger theft than anything else. And that's what's really happening. They're stealing everything, and and these people are going along with it just to get by. And I think it's the short-sightedness of people to not see the bigger picture and realize that, like, yeah, okay, in a few days, okay, we might still be okay. A few more days, we might lose. But long-term, what's the world going to look like? Because they're never going to give us everything back.
No, even with the various vaccines, which, well, Scott Morrison and Greg Hunt, the health minister, today commented on the UK government approving the Pfizer vaccine, and they're still saying that they will not withhold benefits from people who decline the optional jab. And Greg Hunt actually said that with regards to Qantas, because remember Alan Joyce last week, I think it was beginning of last week, told Tracy Grimshaw on A Current Affair, which has basically been New World Order, New COVID TV, that they wanted to update their terms and conditions to have a digital vaccination certificate. Greg Hunter said there will be no way for companies such as airlines to access medical records to find out who has been vaccinated, and such information would be supplied only with the traveller's consent. So that was his response today to Qantas.
Yeah, which Qantas will simply go, if you don't supply us with that information, you won't fly.
Yeah.
So if you consent to give us your information, we will consent to check it, and then if we check it and find out that you've been vaccinated, you can fly with us.
Because they're a private business, they can do that.
Yeah, because libertarianism. I watched, saw David Lionhelm yesterday on Deer, and I met the guy a couple of times, and he was a nice bloke, and had a few drinks with him and stuff. But I posed a question as to whether or not he regrets putting his vote towards the no jab, no pay legislation, which basically set the precedent for all what we're going through now. And he's still sticking to his guns, and I've just lost all respect for him just purely on that basis. But you just can't defend the whole private businesses can do what they want when what private businesses can and can't do in the first place is regulated by government, and we're not living in a situation where we are having pure deals between consumer and businesses. We have consumers constrained, we have businesses advantaged, we have corporations advantaged over smaller businesses, we have rules and regulations which businesses. So the whole idea of a free market between consumers and businesses is just nonsensical to begin with.
It can't exist, and we've seen.
It doesn't exist. And what Stephen's referring to as the hypothetical libertarian world, which is the response that libertarians give you about a hypothetical libertarian world, that it's a private company, they can do what they want.
No, when you receive money from the public, and then these big companies do, and they get government contracts, they get government money. They're not bound. They can't just freely do whatever they like. Plus, they're still governed by law. There's still privacy. The laws regarding your privacy. Your right. I mean, you go back to the Nuremberg Code, and then we have laws against coercion. Just because you're a private company doesn't mean you can just break the laws of the private realm. And that's what they're trying to do. They've just changed move the goalposts further and further away for the people, and they're going to see how far I think it's a big test, see how far we'll go before we say no more. But I think, sadly, I think that the Australian people, for the most part, are possibly willing to go all the way to be comfortable, to stay comfortable, to relinquish all their rights, all their liberty, all their freedom, just so that they can have some bread and circuses to keep them occupied.
Yeah, I'm glad you keep coming back to that point, Nick. It's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, because if I thought that the coronavirus was going to blow over, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. If I thought that, over the last 5 years, that politics was going to sort itself out. The budget was going to be balanced. A bit of immigration control was going to come into place, and like Australia would just keep going as it has. I wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing. It's one of the important points I'm trying to impress on people is that we don't actually have a future the way that things are going. The direction that we're headed, even before the coronavirus, like this country was being deliberately given away. The country was facing an ever burgeoning load of debt, and we've got a debt supernova the entire world over. And now what we're seeing, as is being war gamed, we're seeing authoritarian control being brought in across the board, across the entire world. So if people think that they've got that they can make these trade-offs just to have a good life, it's not going to happen. You don't have a future, so the time to fight is now.
Yeah, and it is the time to fight, because the basic, the principle of our society that separated our society from other parts of the world is the idea of the individual right. Okay, and that's what made it so good. The individual had these rights, and they trumped the right of the state to prosecute. And what they've done is they've gone, we've got to get rid of that. These people at the top, these aristocrats that probably think of us as useless eaters. We're going to deal with the people, the cattle. So what we're going to do, we've got to get rid of these human rights, or these rights that they have, and we've got to give them security, and we're going to force them to have security, so that we can justify taking out their rights. That's what they're doing. They're justifying it by creating something that even if we don't believe it, they're gonna make us accept it one way or another, unless we actually say no more. And I like the Irish model, which is we're just going to do it.
The Irish.
I've got to say here
as well.
Here in Australia, like here in Melbourne, it is interesting. I've seen this cultural masochism. I like that term. But I've also seen the Irish model. I see a lot of people just going, stuff it, we don't care.
There's more maskless people indoors now, and
yes,
I've heard of numerous people who've been
more maskless indoors, but still masks outside. It's like there's a growing divide between two.
Yeah, but I've heard stories of police or people who are maskless inside walking past police, and they don't bother pulling them up anymore, even though they notice that they're maskless. So the police, at least at that stage with the masks now, given that it's only mandatory outdoors, that it's not worth pulling this person up for a mask infringement of $200. But we'll find out on the weekend if there's been a change in police attitude with both there's two Freedom Days now. There's one on Saturday, and I'll put it up on the screen here at Fawkner Park. Starts at 2 p.m. This is organised by the Melbourne Freedom Rally. Its slogan is "End the state of emergency, no COVID, normal, prosecute Daniel Andrews." And then there's the nationwide Freedom Day, which is on the Sunday, with the Melbourne one it's Jack Roper Reserve, which is outside CSL in Broadmeadows. They're manufacturing the Oxford vaccine. That's on Sunday the 6th from 12 p.m. till 2 p.m. Their slogan is "Stand in the Park. Peace is the climate of freedom. No mandatory or coerced COVID vaccines. No COVID normal. Peaceful protest and picnic in the park. Family-friendly event. Entertainment. Bring a Bluetooth speaker for streaming. Chief Health Officer compliant event. Police approved." Now,
that's
Nick, you're
right there. Those two last sentences on there, or points. Okay, police approved, show compliance. Right. When you comply with it, you're agreeing with it. You're by your actions. That's what it is. You're bearing false witness. If you don't believe in it, but you still do it, why are you doing it? And what they're doing is they're begging. We're saying, look, we'll do this, but we don't want. It's like think of it like a bully, right? So a bully comes up to you at school, starts bullying you, picking on you, and your defense is, hey, please don't do that. I don't like that.
The counter argument to that is, obviously there are people who have been firmly opposed to the lockdown, but have been deterred from activism, basically because of all the various freedom days, with the police taking draconian action because they're deemed to be in breach of the Cho directives, and so they're hoping that if it is Cho compliant and police approved, then they'll attract more people who have been previously deterred from attending, and therefore there'll be more people who will be entering that community activism now.
I get it. Like, I've thought about it long and hard, but the point is, if you know something's wrong, right, but you do it, that is in and of itself is a lie with your actions. Okay, you can lie without speaking it. You can you can bear false witness without actually your words with your actions. Now, I get it that people don't want to be attacked by the police, but that's because the police are breaking the law. The kettling is not. You can't kettle. It's against the law to do that. They're detaining people without telling them why they're being detained, and they're holding them for hours. Now, that's against the law. It's against the Human Rights Charter. It's against their procedures, against their own Victoria Police Act, right? But they're doing it anyway. So and the people turning up the way they are, being treated the way they are by the police, has actually brought that to light to a lot of people, so people can see the police don't even follow the law anymore. In regards to this issue, they break the law, and I've brought it up before. The Victoria Police Act, Section 51, says that the duties and powers of a police officer are as a constable at common law. Then you look at the definition from the Australian Legal Dictionary of a constable at common law. It says they cannot be directed by the government as to who they should and should not prosecute. They're only answerable to the law. So then, why are they breaking the law? Kettling is against the Human Rights Charter, which is an act.
Well,
okay.
I think I said this to you previously at the November 3 Melbourne Cup Day Freedom Day, where they did the kettling and deprived the protesters of water for several hours while they were picking them out one by one. That was when the state of disaster was still in place, which gives them varying degrees to suspend human rights, which we're not living under now. So
they set a precedent, didn't they? Yeah, they did it once.
Yeah, but it only gives you legitimate reason. It has to be legitimate reasoning, right? The government going to say, "Oh, we're going to suspend everything." No, there has to be a justifiable reason to suspend something. There's a fire around the area, or there's floodwaters everywhere. There's something dangerous.
Yeah, I would argue that I would agree with you that by November 3, I think we'd already entered the donut days. But we were still under this state of disaster. Yet it wasn't immediately revoked, even though we're on 34 donut days now.
But the other thing about it, though, I mean, apart from the fact that the virus doesn't exist, and I want to keep pointing that home to people, but the other thing about it is, whatever actions they take because somebody is supposedly putting people, breaking these emergency health regulations, in fact, what they put in place can't be something that, by their own definitions, makes people more unsafe.
Oh, that's
So, like corralling people into a big group.
Yeah, I'm not justifying it at all.
But I'm saying, like, the other thing about it is not just that they've broken human rights. They've broken their own bloody stupid, idiotic rules about what spreads the disease.
There's even bigger breaches than that, right? That's obvious, right? But when people are standing there and they're not doing anything, they're not fighting back, and then 7 police officers go and grab them around the neck and roughly drag them away, that's That's not justifiable. That's disproportionate use of force, right? That's an assault. They just went out and assaulted people the whole day. That's what the police are doing, and that we were able to see it, evidence it, and prove it when they detain the people and don't tell them why. Now you tell me, Tim, David, Steve, if you're detaining me and the Human Rights Charter says that you have to tell me and inform me, which is an act of Parliament, right? Human Rights Charter, Human Rights Responsibilities Act, Section 21, subsection 4, you have to inform the people that you're detaining of the reason of the detention at the time of the detention. So if they don't do that for 3.5 hours, and their only argument can be, well, the Human Rights Charter doesn't matter, it's been suspended. Okay, but you can't suspend the Human Rights Charter without a justifiable reason. And there was no reason for them not to tell them why they were being detained.
So is there a group sort of class action being planned about this rally? Because it sounds like a justification for it.
I think that, you know, because I know most of those people that were in that kettle. And I think that that's definitely all the evidence is there. People are gathering the evidence together, and we're having meetings, so it'll definitely be happening.
Good.
Yeah, but it's nothing.
I've seen in the Facebook groups people posting the responses they've got from Victoria Police in wanting to have their infringement held in court, and they're being granted. And how many were fined that day? It was something like 400. And if you're going, it says this, I should have got it up, this Victoria Police letter. It says that the informant, which is the police officer who fined them, will prepare a brief of evidence. And so if all of the 400 appeal to have their cases heard before a magistrate, there's no need to have some sort of class action or anything. The 400 that each individual, they're going to be held in. Each of those hearings here are going to be held individually. That's going to chew up a hell of a lot of police resources for a 650.
Good plan, Tim.
But it's not about the fines or anything. It's about the assault and the deprivation of liberty. That they need to be accountable. You've got to make them accountable for that. Who cares about the fine right now? We were assaulted. We were, because I wasn't assaulted by him, but I was assaulted. We were detained.
I think the most compensation you can get for unlawful arrest is something $800, like a pittance like that. You're not going to get much.
Not for assault.
Through that.
Not for assault. You get
assaulted
you get assaulted by the authorities. You can get a lot more. Well,
it's if they do something like kick you in the head. If it's like a really you're like head blow, then that's likely you're either going to get a $800 compensation for unlawful arrest, or what is it, internal affairs, or
times 400 people though, Tim.
800. That's
you can get more than that. You'll be able to get more than that if you do. You actually were able to provide the, if you had a good case, you had the right you went about it the right way, I think you'd get a lot more than that.
And then there's also the legal fees, which get passed on to the.
If you're ultimately successful, and as we've seen so far with the court decisions, the challenge to the curfew was dismissed. So was the High Court argument that Australia has freedom of movement. So. Yeah, I agree that what happened that day was a grave injustice, but the system is rigged against individuals.
We need to arrest the judges first.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not just that, you need the people at the grassroots level to do stuff, because it's not going to, like they do in Poland and places like that, where they actually do at the grassroots level fight back. And that's the problem, where, there's too many Australians are too reliant on the government to do everything for them. They've got government bodies that do this, that, and the other. Everything's been paid for out of their taxes or whatever, and then they want someone else to do it. It's like, no, get your hands dirty, learn what the law actually is and what you're justified in doing. Go and meet people, go and communicate with them, and join groups and actually stand up to them when they commit those offences. And when the police do the right thing and they don't abuse people and they do a good job, tell them they've done a good job. But when they don't, you stand up to them. You're completely justified in fighting against the police if they're assaulting you or depriving you of your liberty. You have every right to use force to defend yourself if you needs be. If you've said, hey, you're in violation of my human rights, I need to, you need to let me go, or tell me why I'm being detained, and they refuse to, and they'd say, shut up, mate, and they push you. You're right. You're justified in pushing back. My mate's got out of that kettle. and they use force to get out, to get out. But one of the guys I know, because he trains at my gym, and he's brought one of the other guys now that was in there. And they used force, and they pushed one of the police officers over, and they got out. And then they were caught by the police, a couple of blocks up the road in the city, and they weren't charged with assault. Because how can you charge someone for assault when you were depriving them of their liberty? It makes.
Oh, well, you got charged. So
how's this? So I got charged with assault first, and not only that, they said that I had assaulted a police officer, punched a police officer, on all the mainstream TV stations, which was a lie because it's not true. And even in my charge sheet doesn't say that I did that. Charge sheet says I assaulted a police officer by pushing him over, which I did push him over because he grabbed me from behind and I pushed him over. And they're looking at a 5-year prison. This is how ridiculous it is. 5 years in prison for pushing a police officer, but police officers can go and 7 of them go and grab someone and drag them away, and that's okay because they're police and it's different rules for them. So then equity and the rules that we're told legitimately exist, like equality before the law, don't really exist. And all it's going to do, the more we push, it's going to force them to react in such a way that it's going to expose them for what they are and create a great case for us to use later on, because all that video footage that we've got from the police assaulting people, depriving people of their liberty, and acting in a certain way, all that footage of them saying we're going to arrest you for not wearing a mask or for whatever it is, and they don't have reasonable grounds, and they haven't established reasonable grounds. I know all these people that have got this footage, and I've got most of it myself. That's all evidence against the Victoria Police as a whole.
Good.
There was this report in the News Corp publications or websites, whatever you want to call them, which says Melbourne anti-lockdown and freedom protesters set to rally again on Saturday. Despite 0 cases and the city's tough lockdown being over, freedom protesters are set to hit Melbourne streets again this weekend with a new goal. This is their new argument against anti-lockdown protests. Say, well, the lockdown's over, you're free now.
Well, we're not free.
Yeah, we're not free. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah,
that's the point. You've taken power. You've seized some power. You've given a little bit back, and you've kept a whole lot. That's it. We don't want you to have any of it.
So it has here a statement from Victoria Police. They said officers were preparing to respond to protest activity in Fawkner Park on Saturday. Everyone has a right to protest peacefully, as long as it's in accordance with the Chief Health Officer's directions and does not impact the rest of the community who also have the right to go about their daily business, the force said in a statement. Anyone coming into the area looking to disrupt others, create conflict and incite violence can expect a firm response from police. A police spokeswoman said there would be a highly visible police presence in the surrounding areas to ensure a safe environment for the whole community. Recent anti-lockdown and freedom protests in Melbourne have been marred by outbreaks of violence, hundreds of arrests, and a controversial police tactic called kettling. It comes as human rights advocates push for protesting to be specifically mentioned in the Chief Health Officer's directives. Yes, that is an interesting point. It's almost like it's being deliberately omitted. The protests from the Chief Health Officer's directions, because we know how Dan Andrews hasn't liked any of the protests and said that protesting is much worse than having a picnic.
And you read between the lines,
unless it's Black Lives Matter, of course.
Yes, yes. You read between the lines of what they've said there, and they're basically going to arrest quite forcefully anybody who looks like they're trying to protest. By the sounds of things, that's what.
Well, this is the Saturday one, the non-show compliant, non-police approved one. There wasn't any mention about the Sunday one in Broadmeadows.
Like if I just read you, this is the definition of the constable. I'll read you the whole thing, right? Constable, right? And this is actually what all police are defined as, a constable. All of them, whether you're a sergeant, whatever, it's the same. Okay, it's the same powers, right? They just have a hierarchy, right?
Between Stephen and you, it's no wonder we're not monetized.
Yeah. Constable, an independent office dating back to at least the time of Henry I in England. A constable has independent authority to exercise his or her office, Okay, so independent authority. A constable cannot be directed by the government or senior police as to who he or she should prosecute. So they can't be government directives. They can't be being directed by the government. So the chose directives should have no bearing on what the police are doing. Nothing. And then it says a constable's duty is to enforce the law. To enforce the law is a personal responsibility, and the constable is answerable only to the law and not to his or her senior officers for the performance of that duty. Now, they don't do that now. They're completely under the control of the government. They just do whatever the government says. And the problem is people don't know this stuff. And you know why they don't know it? Because when you try to share it, I've tried to share that multiple times, and it's been taken down off Facebook or it's been blocked. And I've been shadow banned, and I haven't been saying, anything racial or anything like that. I've just been trying to explain to people what I've been sharing acts, sections of acts, and this is what the police are in violation of in these situations. And now, I'm shadow banned, so no one can see any of my posts. If I post on Facebook, no one can see it, and if they go to my profile, they still can't see the post. So this is what they're doing. They're censoring this kind of information that we're sharing now. So, Tim, if we get censored, sorry, mate, it's because
Facebook and YouTube are private companies. They can do what they want. But welcome to the extreme far right extreme club. Now you're one of us. Dave, you were saying before that you've been permanently disabled from Facebook.
I'm not even allowed on Facebook. It's probably for the best.
Mm. And you're
just saying, Nick. Basically. I'm glad you bring that up and you're repeating that, because you're basically pointing out that we are by definition already in a police state, which again completely negates the narrative of that news.com article, which is trying to say you're all free now. Why are you protesting? You're pointing out that the police are actually taking directions from the government, completely against the whole point of what the police is supposed to be about. So by definition, we are not free.
We can hear you, Dave, but your photo or picture is frozen.
Oh, that's not such a bad thing, is it?
It's not the most flattering picture of you, but then again,
is it moving again?
No, it's not. There's not many flattering still photos of you.
Hey, and let me. I'll just duck out and I'll come back in.
Because Dave's XYZ profile picture is him with hair above and below around the face as well.
Right.
Mm.
Right. So he, so he's got these two personas.
But it's. I was mentioning before about how Dan Andrews, he hasn't liked any of the protests. I can actually recite all the things that he said against the various protests. He said it's not smart, it's not safe, it's selfish, stupid, it's unlawful, and people shouldn't do it. And all this wouldn't be necessary if people just did what I said.
Yeah. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, isn't it? Do what I say.
And now he's been accused of underfunding the Victorian Ombudsman, which was investigating the ALP branch stacking, and underfunding IBAC, the independent broad-based anti-corruption body, which has been investigating corrupt payments within Melbourne's public transport. Metro Trains and V-Line, they've said we haven't got enough funds to investigate all the corruption. And this is what he said, Andrews, in response to the Ombudsman claims that she can't investigate enough corruption, said no basis in fact. So he's already said that the Ombudsman is a liar.
Did he call it a baseless accusation?
Well, it said no basis in fact. Yeah. It said argued her rhetoric was divorced from reality.
Well, that's what delusional people do. Everyone else is wrong and they're right.
Yeah, you're making an important point here, Tim. Basically, he's making quite a serious allegation against one of the top officials in Victoria.
Yeah, and
you,
so
you can't just dismiss it that shallowly.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
well, obviously he can.
Well, yes, of course. When you're directing the constables, you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
He's his guy, and he's got all the manpower to do it.
Well, don't forget, he's running around like a hero now, and all the dandroids on social media are praising him as such because he's eliminated the coronavirus. Nobody thought that was possible. Of course, they're doing all that they can to continue to downplay or just bury that. Well, the second wave escape from hotel quarantine, which is restarting on Monday.
Actually, one question I've been wanting to pose to Stephen and Nick, because I don't think I've spoken to you guys since the South Australia little experiment happened. To me, the whole South Australian thing just seemed like an exercise in it just seemed like another psyop, another test run. Just saying, okay, let's see if we can just get like lots of people to queue up like in a big hurry. Let's see if we can just push the envelope just a little bit further. What did you guys think of all of that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting. Like you say, another test to see what they can do. I mean, I'll give you one example of what it has done, because obviously, like was it a day later that they turned out that it was all a hoax?
It was a few days. Yeah, just a couple of days.
Yeah, the super strain.
The super strain. Anyway, so here's an example of what the knock-on effect has been in Western Australia. So there's a video up on YouTube. A guy came over from Western Australia, literally as this new fake scare was coming across. The borders had been opened. He'd been told he wouldn't have to quarantine and he could just come. Great. So drives over or gets on a plane or whatever he does. And then this stuff happens. And then the rules change on him midway.
Yeah.
So he's gone from there to WA, and now he's been told you have to quarantine and you have to be tested. And he says, well, if I had known, the reason I came was because I don't want to quarantine and I don't want to be tested, and I was told I wouldn't have to. As a compromise, I am in quarantine. I've been in quarantine for 12 days now. I'm not showing any symptoms, but the officials that were there were handing him a notice saying, you have 24 hours in which to agree to being tested for COVID. Yeah. Otherwise, we will force test you. We will enact the Emergency Powers Act in WA and literally, without your consent, hold you down and probe you with the thing that we need. We will rape you.
I saw that video. I thought it was interesting that it looked like one of the police officers was Chinese, and the health officer would look Chinese as well. That's just
I mean the doctor in there, because it was an actual medical person who's going there and giving this notice to him and reading it out to him. That person should have their license revoked immediately. Hippocratic oath, first do no harm, all that, that should be gone. That should be instant dismissal and prosecution.
In a moral world.
In a moral world, even I often talk to my wife. My wife always gets really annoyed about the things that should be that aren't. Gets very uptight about it, But yeah,
we all agree on how things should be. It's just that how things should be. It's not the way that our current system is structured.
Can we elect a monarch between us, and finally have a king?
What about
Not the current British royal family.
Yeah.
Well, they're not British; they're German. So House of Hanover.
Hey, so talking about crossing borders, Tim, like you were saying that there's a great escape going from Melbourne, like people trying to get out of Victoria now.
Yeah, because the New South Wales border is open. That opened on the 23rd, and starting on Tuesday, the Queensland border was open as well. And there are quite emotional scenes at both Sydney and Coolangatta airports, with grandparents meeting their grandchildren for the first time, all very emotional, people embracing and that. So all the social distancing out the window. And yeah, like if this is summer in Australia now, which I call a virus frying weather. It was 40 degrees up in Albury, Wodonga, which made the Wodongans wearing their cultural masks even more ludicrous. So the heat obviously kills all flu-like viruses. So there's not going to be much transmission of any type of virus during this period. So this is the summer window before March, when autumn comes, and then the viruses start to circulate. And who knows if we're going to have a lockdown every winter now because there's some flu. But there was a lot of attention.
It's also the summer window then. Like if you want to get out of Melbourne and if you want to get out of Victoria, do it now.
Yeah.
The only problem is now they're wearing masks to fight global warming.
Oh yeah, climate lockdowns.
Lockdown.
Ban all meat and driving cars.
Yeah, and then we're going to have the Great Reset, and then we're going to have the grid shutdowns and the supply chain shutdowns, and so that's all to come. So once enough people wake up to the scam of COVID, look out for the next one, the next fake crisis, global crisis that needs a global solution.
I think the TV and all the screen watching and the games and everything I think that's just completely stopped our capacity from being able to think.
Yeah. Well, another thing you should do this summer is get out and enjoy nature. There was one high-profile escapee from Melbourne who was in the news today, and that's Sky News' Andrew Bolt, the Bolt to the Coast. He wrote an article in the Herald Sun saying that he was leaving Melbourne, but he's going to the Mornington Peninsula, which, if you remember the lockdown boundaries, Mornington Peninsula was counted as part of Metro Melbourne and was included in the stage 4 lockdown. So he sold his 4-bedroom home in Melbourne East for 2.8 million. And
he's actually sold up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I believe the Mornington Peninsula suburb he's going to be at is Summers, which is on the Western Port side, and apparently Sky building him his own custom studio at his new coastal residence.
I wonder if he has a boat as well. Like maybe that's the plan.
Well,
I'm not even memeing. Like,
but that, yeah,
get out of there.
Most of Twitter was celebrating that Dan Andrews had got rid of another virus and were basically saying good riddance. So yeah, it's clear that the Dandroids, they want to, well, as with the Great Reset, build back better, and with Dan Andrews and Tim Pallas, Uncle Fester, the Treasurer's state budget, it's basically a socialist central planning building budget. There's hardly anything for the private sector.
I tell you what, I didn't miss the traffic during lockdown. It was quite beautiful not having to punch through just the mess. Yeah,
you're a very glass half full kind of guy.
Oh, absolutely. To be completely honest,
you enjoyed the lockdowns too, didn't you, Dave?
I actually enjoyed the lockdowns. It actually took the edge off. It actually meant that I actually had time to get everything done that I wanted to get done. I weigh less than I did at the start of the lockdown. I'm fitter. I can lift more. I have better cardio.
They're doing on-air flex for us, Dave.
I think you should start. I think the next step for you, Dave, is to start touting the positives of population reduction.
Basically, the lockdown gave me everything I ever wanted.
Yeah.
I still recognize it as totalitarianism.
It's still totalitarianism, but like if we can just get to the part where we eliminate 95% of the global population, then my life will be great. My life will be great. Thanks very much. The traffic will be fantastic.
Given that white people consist of 8% of the world population, that doesn't seem like a bad thing. You just have to, Anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, there's 8%, and then of course at least
3% of ours are probably
at least 40% of our people are left-wing cucks. So we should get rid of them as well, which will leave the 5% that we're talking about.
So what you're saying is that you agree with Bill Gates's global vaccination program across the world.
He's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons.
This sure took a dark,
very dark turn.
not nihilistic turn.
But on the plus side, Tim, we're with the plan, which means we won't get banned.
Exactly.
See, he's a glass half full guy too.
We've actually got a question here on entropy, and now I've been putting the link into the chat. So if you want to ask a question or send through a super chat, the entropy link is in the chat. This is from Bill Stock, and it's a question for Stephen. Does he still think Kerry Stokes is mud after hearing he's bankrolling Ben Roberts-Smith from the SAS, his defamation lawsuit against Channel 9 for accusing him of war crimes in Afghanistan?
I hadn't actually heard the story. So he's paying for the legal fees, is he?
Well, he's employed Ben Roberts-Smith to run Channel 7 in Brisbane, and well, he's suing Ben Roberts-Smith, Channel 9, Kerry Stokes's greatest rival. But I think what Bill Stock is sort of implying here is, that the smearing of our SAS through the Brereton report is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are very few people who are 100% evil. And sometimes evil people do good things for whatever their own evil reasons are. So what I've read so far about Kerry Stokes, he doesn't impress me very much as he seems to be a bit of a Satanist. He seems to be part of the agenda. But that said, there are even people like Sarah Hanson-Young occasionally accidentally do things right. So, who knows? But he's probably referring to the last time I was on, I think, when I had a little bit of a tirade because I was reading something about the paedophile network and his involvement in trying to silence people. I was reading about his colluding with judges to try and silence people who were trying to out the paedophile network. So, but do I support the troops who were sent over to Afghanistan? And yes, I do. So.
Yeah, it's a really important thing, isn't it? Like, you guys, we're all old enough to remember what things were like after Israel did 9/11. Basically, the doomsday fear was what happens if terrorists get hold of nuclear weapons of mass destruction.
Well, that was never going to happen.
So I think
we're going to get censored now that you said that, but that was the fear, and so from there, the justification was, look, we can send these people over and do things that we wouldn't usually do because the fear is the possible consequences of failure are so high. And so we sent soldiers over to the Middle East with a license to basically bend the rules. Like there are great debates in all the media about whether or not we should torture people to get information and whether that information would be reliable and all this sort of stuff. And so that was the context that the soldiers were sent over in. So now we're 20 years down the track. These guys have basically done everything they can for their country, but you've got the cultural Marxists here in power who want blood and who want to make an example of these people.
Anti-Australians who take every other nation's side except ours, which is why they're all just this week being, why can't you just forgive and forget China, and are we any better than what China does?
Yeah. So they're basically selling these guys down the river. Like the people who, like, if you want to hold people responsible for what was done, hold the leaders who sent them out there, hold them responsible. Like if you want to take a war against Islamic terrorism seriously, don't send your young men into a meat grinder and try to bring democracy in. And like, if you're serious about tackling terrorism, kill people, and kill your enemies and kill them properly. And then don't apologize for it. Like, kill a whole heap of them. If you want to do nation building and that sort of stuff, then do that, but don't make that about terrorism. Basically,
that's what Iraq turned into.
Yeah, basically, these guys are the fall guys for neocon failed policy.
Yeah, and neocon failed policies are just another part of the whole globalist agenda anyway. And when you start seeing how everything ties in, and you start realizing that Bush, and there was no difference between Bush, Clinton, and Gore or Obama. They're all the same. They're all the same thing. In Iraq, Afghanistan was wrong, but Iraq was just absurdly wrong. And I remember, people forget that, or people are old enough to know that that there were blatant lies told about Iraq in order to go in there. The most stupidest one, and we think now about how absurd things we are told now, and how many people believe absurd things now. But back in 2002. They were saying that Saddam Hussein was working together with Al Qaeda, and it was just the most stupid accusation whatsoever. When on the first Iraq war, Bin Laden was on record as ringing up and saying, "Do you want my help to get rid of Saddam Hussein?" They were mortal enemies.
Well, if anyone's working with what's his name, with Al Qaeda, it was and the rich royal Saudi families, then it was the American cult, being Al Gore, Bush, and they're the ones that were. I mean, they've all been those families.
And they were the one who funded him. They were the one who set up Al Qaeda in the first place. They were the ones who sent them against the Russians back in the 80s. They were a product of the CIA.
But it's all shaping. They've just shaped people's perception, right? So the battlefields of the mind, this is how it operates. They keep changing the way we think through these big shock events. And I mean, when September 11 happened, when the false thing, with Martin Bryant at in Port Arthur.
There's a movie coming out about.
There's two movies.
I find that interesting. Did they find out that some of your mates were making a movie about it, so they figured they needed to get something official out to put the official narrative out?
Even the official narrative version is getting pilloried by Port Arthur survivors, saying this is such insensitive. So even doing a film with the official history, the director of this is still getting pilloried for it.
Yeah, good. I think that explains what they're doing. Sorry.
I'll just finish what I was saying, but what they do is they shape our perception, right? So they change the way people think, because I'm sure 100 years ago, people wouldn't have thought that it was okay to, in any capacity, to just generally to allow the government to just come into your house and do whatever they like, right? And even to create that that precedent, or to put it out there, would be considered to be absurd. But it's not now. People go, oh yeah, but because we need that, because what if this happens, and we need to be safe. That's how much our thinking has changed collectively. So what they do is they create these shock events, and obviously Port Arthur was one of them. What do they do when Port Arthur happened? They got all the kids in all the schools to have a minute's silence. I think it's a minute silence of indoctrination. That's what they do. Whenever they have a big event like that, they have the minute silence at the school, and then they discuss it. and they talk about it and what happened. It's always the official story. So all that whole generation of children, they end up being indoctrinated into the lie, and they have malleable minds. And those malleable minds, okay, they absorb everything, and it changes the way they grow. It's like a plant, you know. If you do something to it, you know, as it's starting to sprout, you know, and you stomp on it or something, you know, whatever you do, or if you bend it at its roots, and it's going to start to grow in a different way, in a different direction. So that's what they're doing. And there's a really good book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. It was written by a woman named Jarrad Searby. I don't know if you guys have ever read that book, but it's she was the head of education during the Reagan administration. She talks about how they've brought in this communist education system specifically to bring us to this. Well, she doesn't say now, but
I'm trying to think that there's an actual document that that lays out the plan for dumbing down America, which was written, I think, in the 1930s. I cannot remember the name of it, but yeah, it basically lays out everything that they've done since in advance.
I think we're demonetized again now. We've finally got joining the stream now. Jarrad Searby, you made it. We all thought you'd been, well, we just assumed that you'd been arrested again.
How long did
that explanation?
Not actually. I'm very sorry, Tim. I do give you my apologise. And to be honest, it wasn't actually me that was arrested, but it was my brother. So he had a run in today. Yeah, he's got a few outstanding issues, and yeah, my phone died earlier, and I couldn't get hold of you, Tim. So I do apologise. How are you, boys? Nick, good to see you.
Good to see you, mate.
Dave, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Jazz. Nice
Dave,
to see you.
how are you, mate? Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers.
We're just in the middle of talking about the SAS soldiers accused of war crimes in Afghanistan. Well, 19 of them, because now China is trying to take the moral high ground with us, amazingly. And the anti-Australian brigade is assisting them. And this is what you wrote, Dave, on XYZ. What the bloody hell did you think was going to happen, ScoMo? And this is the Li Jianzhou, who's the deputy director of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said, shocked by murder of Afghan civilians and prisoners by Australian soldiers. We strongly condemn such acts, call for holding them accountable. And it's called a doctored image. It should be just called fake, because it is fake. And has a Australian soldier beheading a little Afghani boy with a goat saying, don't be afraid, we're bringing you peace. And Scott Morrison has probably responded in probably the way that the Chinese were hoping to get triggered and all carried over it, demanding an apology, said it's a repugnant and offensive. And I've termed this shitpost diplomacy. And so Scott Morrison has basically responded with snowflake diplomacy, like, oh, how could you do this? We demand an apology, when he should have just responded with a shitpost of our own.
Yes, and the point that I made in the article as well, none of this would ever have happened if he hadn't been such a cuck and allowed this ridiculous investigation, this throwing under the bus of our soldier heroes in the first place. What did he expect would happen when he when he allows a ridiculous investigation of the SAS troops who are out there serving our country? Of course, our enemies are going to use this to try to weaken the morale of our own troops and take out of this.
Was it you or Maddie who wrote the article about there is no such thing as a war crime?
That was me.
It was you, yeah. I mean, it's the whole idea of a war crime. You know, it came because
we're accusing ourselves of war crimes. It's this in Brereton report.
Well, you said
which is. Well, I mean, the whole notion of a war crime is only sort of since the First World War that they decided to start having them, because the public got a bit outraged about how many people were killed in the trenches and the gas and stuff. But it's even that. We talk about the perceptions that have changed from 100 years ago. There's no such thing as a war crime. War is war. You know,
Yeah.
there's no nice way to kill people, and when you war against and in war, traditionally, civilians were tools of war, and killing civilians was tools of war.
The war crimes that were prosecuted after were particularly World War II. They were basically just show trials of the victors, where they'd hold the losers accountable for their war crimes. Where if the war had gone the other way, then it would have been
us for Dresden, and it would have been us for Hiroshima, and it would have been us for
so it's basically a victor's show trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very, very. What does that tell you then? That we're now having a victor's show trial of Australian troops by the Australian government.
Yeah, well, that does tell you who really lost. Because, surely if we were fighting a war on terror, we would have killed a lot of terrorists. But instead, we sent our troops in there just to get into this meat grinder, and it just goes round and round in circles about the morality of it all. Plus, we brought millions of Muslims into the West.
And most of the people that died in the attack died from drone strike attacks and such anyway, which we had no say over, but obviously, they're a casualty of war, so they're not investigating topics like that. The fact they figured the
fact that Obama can what was it? 27,000 drone strikes in a year or something or other.
Yeah, hospitals and schools. That's not at all. That's completely legitimate.
That's the point. I push a police officer over because I was assaulted by him, and they want to put me in prison for 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
But somebody can completely lie about Iraq. And Afghanistan, and cause the deaths of so many people and
millions of people. Yeah,
okay. That's how the messed up it is, because we're the useless eaters. Remember, we're not the important ones.
Yeah. And if you want to go back to the 90s with U.S.-Iraqi relations, Bill Clinton's Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, the old witch who's still alive. I think she's in her 90s now. She was asked by 60 Minutes USA, these U.S. sanctions against that the U.S. has imposed against Iraq have led to the death of 500,000 Iraqi children. Is it worth it? And she said she didn't dispute the figure. She just said, "Oh well, we think it's worth it."
Yeah, unbelievable, isn't it? How can you put a worth on someone's life? To even answer that question is ridiculous.
Or even how about a Hillary Clinton impression? We came, he saw, he died.
We came, we saw, he died.
He died.
That was from that was popularized by the Hillary is Evil remix, which is disappeared from YouTube.
I've got a friend who was a real good mate of mine who was in Iraq, and he said it was terrible, but it was just horrible. But he's a very strong-minded bloke, and he actually, they got ambushed in a convoy, and they had some Iraqi people in one of the vehicles, and they ran from so they got ambushed on one side, and they ran to the other side of the road to get cover. There was a little girl in the car who was the daughter. It was an Iraqi family, but one of the daughters was still in the car. She was young, and my mate looked at one of the other soldiers, and they just ran to get her, and they got her out. But they got into so much trouble for saving that little girl's life, like big trouble.
Yeah.
How she is. You don't go against the orders to save someone's life, which is completely opposed to what we know is right and true. You actually do anything to save the little girl's life. That's
as they did. Their natural instinct was obviously to step in. That should be everyone's natural instinct.
Because they're good. They were good men. Yeah.
Speaking of wicked witches, Dave, the wicked witch of the Midwest, Gretchen Whitmer, who I think she was
on B. I saw there was that little Babylon Bee thing on her.
Yes, so this is what she was wearing at her latest Corona press conference, because now the Democrat politicians are giving full press conferences in masks. So it says, personally, if I had to go out and tell everyone Christmas fun is cancelled this year and that my dream is to rule the galaxy with the other Dark Lords, I wouldn't have a clue what to wear. But I've got to hand it to her. She nailed it.
She nailed it, yeah.
She's even got the the Emperor's guard behind it. Apparently, the Babylon Bee put out a headline which I'm slightly jealous of, saying that a Wicked Witch of Michigan, Gretchen, has cast a spell to make it permanently winter, and Christmas is always cancelled.
They put another one saying that a vaccine, the Pope saying that the vaccine passports will be necessary to enter heaven.
And the other Babylon Bee headline the other Babylon Bee headline I liked was saying, to save time, they're just going to quote Joe Biden verbatim.
Yeah, they also did a quite another accurate satire article about Biden's all-female communications team. This is them here. And they basically, it's got the MSNBC logo there. It basically looks like he hired all those women from MSNBC.
Yeah, I do like it. I saw a similar joke made with regard. Apparently, there's going to be an all-female space crew sent up to the space station. So yeah, it'll be along similar lines. Houston, we have a problem. What seems to be the matter? No,
but at least it'll be clean. At least it'll be clean.
They'll have good sandwiches.
I don't think Joe Biden knows what decisions he's making. I think he's just sitting there with his head spinning around on a circle and bloody, signing whatever document is put in front of him. No, Neil, I'm not actually. I'm sitting in bed. So, yeah.
Remember that Joe Biden, he had to go to...
do that for ages.
He had to go to hospital this week, Joe Biden, because he got injured playing with his dog.
And he can't remember which foot he hurt. he keeps changing the foot that his cast is on. Have you seen the photos? There's photos of it on his left foot, and then there's another photo of it on his right foot, and then there's another one with him, a 6-year-old man, is he? With supposedly a broken foot, putting his full weight on his cast foot. I want to know more about that story, Tim. Tell me more. What? Because there's conspiracy theories now about his foot.
I think he's 76. He's hurt his bloody hip.
78.
He moved too quick.
78.
So you'll probably have a cast every week. If he bumps into a bloody bench, he's going to be bruised for a week. So I think at that age, the cast is probably legit.
He just can't remember which foot he broke. That's the problem.
We've got a super chat from Senator Slayer.
See, somebody put that in there. Did you see that one that quickly flashed up on the screen? The conspiracy theory that he's is to hide his bracelet.
Yes.
Oh.
The super chat from Senator Slayer for $3 Australian. I'll just put it in the YouTube chat and put it on the screen. How good was Goxie's classic stitch up on Grace on his birthday? Lols. Aaron Gox is a very talented and famous comedian and shouldn't be judged by a failed comedian like Grace. Good on him. Yeah, I did see that a message was posted about Peter Grace on his birthday, and from what I heard, he didn't react well.
I still don't know who Peter Grace is. I'm going to have to catch up. I've been meaning to, but I'm going to have to find out.
Well, he's not around to make a video on you anymore, so that's probably why.
Well, lucky me. Last thing I need is a video made about me.
But going back to the Obama, I was going to say the Biden, the team that he's putting together for his presidency. The reason why I said Obama is because it's basically the Biden presidency is going to be like Obama term 3, because he's hired a whole bunch of for the actual serious positions, not the communications team. They're all ex-Obama deep state people.
Well, he's got to be replaced soon anyway, hasn't he? Because Kamala's going to be president.
You know, if his foot is any, like if it is real, like I've been saying, probably last year, the way he's going, he may not even last it to inauguration, if he is even inaugurated. Like, it's intriguing. Like the Trump cases are sort of just bumping up the court levels. There are a few things which are starting to make their way to the Supreme Court now.
Yeah. Hey, they're still counting votes, did you know? Yep. And that Biden now has 81 million votes, which is 51.3% of the popular vote, the most votes ever for a presidential candidate. Trump is on 74 million votes, which is the second most ever for a presidential candidate. Trump even beat Obama's 69 million votes in 2008, but Trump has still lost with 74 million votes, with 47% of the vote. But the
so
Democrats...
what we're talking about here then is the potential of maybe 14, 15, 20 million fake votes. That's how much they would have had to fake the vote counting to get...
Well, if you look at the House balance of power, the Democrats have only just scraped over the line with retaining control of the House, and with the Senate, there's still the two Georgia Senate runoff races, which the Republican candidates came first. So at the moment, Republicans have 50 Senate seats, Democrats 48. So in terms of Congress, it's pretty finely balanced. But yeah, Electoral College landslide, and Biden has won by 7 million votes, including and by 4.3 percentage points. I guess it must be all those votes which just had marked for Biden and no other candidate down the ticket.
Yeah,
the numbers are just so incredibly stupid. I mean, there are counties where you've got 108% of the electorate turned out. You know, where more people turned out than were actually registered voters. You know, in a country that typically only has a 50% turnout for an election. You know, I think it's like 54, 55%.
Yeah,
you know.
The greatest turnout in 120 years, apparently.
Yeah, and only in the swing states. It's like that's
and in those swing states, only in several counties, which mostly included the cities.
Yeah, and I mean the amount of if this had happened anywhere in Africa, you know, anywhere in Africa, anywhere in South America, it would be all over about the rigged election. If this had happened in Russia, if this happened in China, if this happened anywhere else in the world, it would be all over the news about how the election was rigged. I've got no time for anybody. You come across people on Facebook. I just block them now. I don't even bother arguing. I mean, if they're at the point where they're saying that this election was legitimate, I'm sorry, you're too stupid to talk to. Goodbye.
I know that Sidney Powell, she's the Trump campaign now says that she's not with them. She was widely pilloried for talking about the Smartmatic systems were started in Venezuela, and she was pilloried for saying, "Oh, how can the dead Hugo Chavez affect our election?" But he actually researched Smartmatic. It started in Venezuela.
You'll probably also find out that Hugo Chavez voted for Biden 1,000 times.
Oh yes, because
yeah.
What's that, Nick?
I said at least 1,000 times he would have voted.
Do you think the Americans are going to sit back and let this happen?
You're quite. Your reception's quite poor there, Jazz.
Oh, sorry, mate. I'll have to get the extender going again. Do you think they're going to accept it, the Americans, or? Yeah,
they will. No. Just like Australia,
so?
Australia is going to scream, inject me now.
I think the Patriots in America, they're going big. Like there were people marching in Washington. There are rallies all over the country.
I can't see them standing down.
Yeah. If they're going to have.
Biden's going to try to take all their guns, and that's
100%.
I should say. They're going to try and take their guns, and that's not going to go down well. It's not going to go down well at all.
No. A lot of them blokes say, like, they openly start off, they give up their guns, and you can see they're not playing. You've got to genuinely believe them when they say that.
Well, the NRE, the NRA, what do they say? from a cold dead hand.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Well, Biden, as I said, he's going to be Obama term 3, and so he's not really going to do all the crazy things that the progressives would love him to do, such as take all the guns. That's never going to happen.
Yes, he will.
But Kamala Harris will.
She might.
Yeah,
she will. Kamala Harris will, and Kamala Harris will be president. They don't want Biden as president. Biden was just a way to get the progressive in. The whole point of having Kamala Harris on the ticket with Biden was because Biden was always a stooge. Biden was always going to be dropped. Biden is always going to be removed within months or not weeks of him actually becoming president.
Well, it's folly to predict the future. He could last a term. We never know. He might have enough supplements and might have all artificial limbs by then and make it through one term.
Well, I'm sorry. He may remain as an advisory to the president in a glass tube as a head, like on Futurama.
You've also got to consider, like, the first half of this live stream. What we're talking about the coronavirus. One of the biggest reasons for the coronavirus was to give the Democrats the excuse to have mail-in votes so that they could commit this fraud on a massive scale. So you don't commit that level of fraud just so you can get somebody in who's going to just, like, push the envelope just a little bit further. Like, it seems what's being signaled here is that they're actually going to really
they make it in a play.
Overdrive. Like, we've got the globalists talking about the Great Reset. They're going to be put in place the Great Reset in America. That's what the plan is.
I agree. Hey guys, I've got to go. I've got to get my last official haircut before it becomes an area I have to protest on and never do again. So
I'm past my bedtime too, so I'm going to call it too. Nice to see you all.
You too, guys. Take care.
Cheerio.
Cheers.
See ya. Oh, well, us three might carry on for a bit longer since you joined us later, Jazz. With regard to the Great Reset, which is a policy of the World Economic Forum, have you seen what this Klaus Schwab looks like? And this is not a Photoshop photo.
No, that's a fact. That's what he is. That's the reality. The Sith Lords are coming out, and we're finding out that Star Wars was actually it was non-fiction. It was it was real.
Do you know who he reminds?
That's straight out of a movie.
Yeah. Do you know who he looks like or reminds me of? Klaus Schwab.
No.
The Golden State Killer. One of America's serial killers. There murdered 12 people and raped over 50 women. They finally caught the Golden State Killer back in 2017. Joseph James D'Angelo is his name. He's in prison now. So yeah, it's quite a similar appearance.
It is similar feature.
Well, I think the Great Reset will kill a lot more people.
Yeah. Maybe they're from the same cult, but it is amazing because these people are, people think that everything is operating the way it's meant to operate, and they don't realise that there's a lot of these people are involved in some pretty sick cults, and they're involved in some pretty sick stuff, and that's manifesting in the world when you see, the idea of, climate science becoming like a religion. Where does that come from? I'm sure
Gaia, the climate god.
There you go, right? It's a religion. It's deep occult ideas that they want to condition our minds to believe, and they're doing it on a mass scale. I mean, they think that they're convincing people that there's too many people. I mean, I heard that, and I don't know where I heard this, but apparently in China, they would teach that, and it was to justify obviously their one-child policy, but that it was something to do with the dinosaurs and what was it? Hell, I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna see if I can find it for you. All right, I'll get back to you because it's actually quite funny.
It doesn't surprise me at all that the fact that they do that, because obviously they get to them young. The younger they can get to them, the more they can institutionalize them and
you're dropping out.
They come out. Sorry, mate. Yeah, you can see them coming out of uni now, and they come out completely bloody, institutionalized. They have no idea what's going on in the real world. So you can see their system at work.
Speaking of, remember last summer with Australia's Black Summer bushfires, we were our bushfires were supposed to represent the climate apocalypse, and a lot of the news is doing 1 year since the Black Summer bushfires, but we've had a few bushfire blazes, but they've hardly threatened property. There was one that did threaten property in southwestern Sydney, but that was deliberately lit. But it's interesting that after all of that, all of the fuel loads and hectares that were burnt last summer, given that you need fuel loads and dead wood for bushfires to really, really rage, that is not happening a second year in a row. Who would have thought that ecology would play out naturally?
Sorry, guys, I can't find this this link I was looking for. Yeah. But
yeah, obviously it's very good that we've had hardly any bushfires this summer, and we can enjoy what is that? I'm not going to use the word COVID normal, or we're going to have in Victoria now a COVID safe summer, because Dan Andrews is announcing the next step on his roadmap. It's not called COVID normal anymore. It's called a COVID safe summer. And he said we should be very excited, since we've gone 34 cases without a new coronavirus case. We've got no active cases in the state, even though we've got no active cases, we did have a person in their 70s die from the coronavirus on Monday.
Well, maybe that'll be like a number one hit song on the charts. COVID. What did he say? COVID safe summer. It sounds like a musical, or a song, or even a movie. It could be the name of a movie, COVID Safe Summer, and to indoctrinate everybody that listens to it. I mean, because obviously we know that the media, that's their job. But I reckon he's got some really good, he's got whoever's writing all of his speeches down, because obviously he's not going to.
There's been a lot of money on their marketing team, that's for sure. They definitely have some big board meetings to discuss that. That's a think tank of people.
Because COVID Safe Summer sounds really nice, doesn't it? Sounds really nice. Yeah. I'm stupid, and I'm ignorant and naive, and I think that's really nice. COVID Safe Summer, yay!
Yeah.
Oh, I like Daniel Andrews. He's making me feel safe.
Yeah, and also it was a good marketing strategy to get rid of the purple wall of doom, with the staying apart keeps us together, and now it's got the white wall of the new slogan, stay safe, stay open. When I first heard about that slogan, I thought to myself, that's what she said.
Well, I reckon that they just have a I'm not going to respond to that one.
Well done, Tim. I'll pay that. I'll pay that one.
I reckon they just have their little meeting, right, with all their people wearing those fancy outfits like that, that Schwab guy.
No, they've got the masks. Remember, Dan, he used to photograph himself even when he was about to eat a donut. He had the mask on. So they're all around with the masks on.
That's the new religious order, isn't it? But I reckon they have these. They maybe have these meetings where they all meet. these Masonic meetings when they get together and they decide, who's going to, and they probably wager it, like, I bet you can't say this and get away with it. And then they go, all right. And maybe it's just a game, All right, I'm going to get away with that. So, so the social, what is the social distancing one that they say? What's the one that they say?
Oh yeah, staying apart keeps us together.
Yeah, I bet you can't sell that one, right? And there's like, I bet I can. All right. And there's probably, it has to be something like that because it doesn't make any sense. Why you would even try to say that?
Daniel Andrews won hands down there. The Victorians fucking ate up everything. So,
absolutely.
It's still a bit crappy in there. You might need to go outside if you can. But Dan's his marketing his marketing team put out this week for a COVID normal Christmas is that he had a Zoom meeting with Santa, and Santa was granted a transit permit. So Santa applied for a application form, permitted travel to Victoria, reason for travel, giving presents, spreading joy, eating mince pies, making a list, checking list twice, other details, seeing the regions, going to beach, investigating kangaroos as alternative to reindeer. So Dan's made sure that Santa and his reindeers have got a COVID-safe plan, and he's going to be able to deliver presents this Christmas.
You see how we were talking about shaping, how they've shaped people's minds, right? And this is how they do it. So especially with kids. Like I went to the park the other day because I go there every day because it's behind my house. I go to the park, I take the kids. I homeschool my kids. I don't want to have them in school because I just don't trust the schools anymore. And what they do is at the primary school they send all the kids, or I don't know if it's all the kids, but a lot of the kids go to the oval at the football oval, which is connected to the school. So it's not actually part of the school. The park's connected to the school though. Okay, borders, and they come in during it must be lunchtime. So I'm walking with the baby and my three boys, and my baby girl, my dog's there. And some of the kids jump over, those barriers around the football oval? They're like a metal barrier, it's about waist height. And they jump over and they start patting the dog. And there's a bunch of kids yelling at these other kids, you're going over the boundary. It's against the rules. Got to stop, come back. Now, they were about 3 meters over the boundary, right? That's all. And there was no danger, but it was just, you could see how these kids were just conditioned that that's the rule. No logical reasoning for it. Then the teacher walks past and says, get back over here. There's about 4 kids, back into the boundary. Now, there's no real boundary. It's just, like footy ovals at the local park, they just have that barrier, and you can just go under it or over it.
Yeah, they put signs on there for advertisement and all that.
Yeah. And that's all it is. And they just jumped over there. Or no, they went underneath because they were primary school kids, right? And that's how they're conditioned. So they're just taught just to follow rules, not you follow these rules for this reason. Okay, there's a reason for it. They're not using any, and that's what I like about homeschooling with my kids is at least I can teach them, this is what they teach you at school, and this is what I think it is, and here's what some other people think this is. What do you think it is? And then my son starts to think about it, my oldest son, and he'll start to go, yeah, Dad, that's really interesting. Yeah, and rather than just being told what to think, that's what they're doing, right? And what you just what you just showed us, Tim, with that Santa getting his COVID approval to Santa getting that COVID approval. That's the sort of thing that they do. You got your pen license.
Have you also seen the Melbourne Maya Christmas windows? They've got them in masks.
Oh no,
that's conditioning. Optical conditioning there.
And that's an Asian. That's an Asian wearing a mask. But you're completely right with homeschooling, Nick. We do the same thing here. My wife and I, we decided to homeschool just before COVID because obviously this year was my daughter's first year of school. But there's the kids are so much better for it. We would never. it would be detrimental now at this stage to send our daughter to school. Would be detrimental to her education because she, she's become so advanced through homeschooling, through my wife doing all that sort of stuff.
They're able to then think for themselves, right? They learn how to think. They don't
100%.
know how to think at school. They learn.
No.
They just told what.
They're discouraged from thinking. Yeah.
And you know what? Like when I first started homeschooling years ago, we'd just try to follow the standard, the standard schooling, protocol. Now we don't really follow that because, you're trying to force information into the kid's mind. It's like, don't try to force information in their mind. You've got to get them to want to absorb information and start thinking. That's it. How do you get your kids thinking? You've got to get doing stuff, Yeah.
And as long as you get your basic English and your basic maths done in the first couple of years, you have the freedom to educate them on whatever subjects that, like you said, interest them. And that way they find it a lot easier to learn. My daughter's really smart. I don't know where she got it from. It must have been my wife's side of the family, but a lot of times she'll only want to do 20 minutes of work, and then she's antsy and she feels like running around. So we let her run around for 20 minutes, and then she'll do another 20 minutes of book work. And she's at a grade 3 level now. She's doing grade 3 maths, all that sort of stuff, and she's in prep. So giving her that freedom has helped her to be able to go forward. Whereas if she was at school, she's a little shit, they would tell her off all the time. She would constantly be in trouble,
And she's a girl, and girls are much easier to teach than boys at that age. Stuff, and they want to, whereas girls can sit there and they can concentrate and think.
Yeah. I can't wait till my boys grown up on it. That's going to be fun.
You know that they made the Year 12s do their exams in masks?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Even sitting down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because one of them might sneeze on the on the person in front of them from on the back of their head as well. And they've turned off. You know how schools have those drinking fountains, those communal drinking fountains.
Yeah.
All of those have now not been deemed COVID safe, so they've got tape over them. The water main's been switched off. So particularly at high schools, they're all forced to wear masks in high school, which of course makes you thirsty. Yet how are they supposed to get a drink?
Well, I'm not opposed to them turning off them fluoride flooded fucking bubble taps for them kids. The fact that they give them that on anyway, that's that's good. Make them drink bottled water. That's much better for them.
Yeah. You can still get. We've still got ample supply of cultural masks for sale. They're now half price. But look at what this one says. The brand is Lacare. Disposable face mask with ear loop, safe and breathable, but says non-medical. So they don't work.
So what's the point?
Like Nick said, it's a lot of money, isn't it? That's $20.
It used to be $40. It used to be $40 for a 50-pack.
Yeah. That's absolutely crazy.
So anyway, that's what they're doing. They're conditioning the kids to think, and like you showed in that image there with the wearing the mask. That's what they're doing. That's the images that they put in the minds of the people is how they control the people. Because if you tell the lie over and over, especially to malleable minds, they're going to believe it because that's all that they're seeing. They're going to believe what they see, and all you got to do is listen to the radio. You hear the same music over and over and over. It doesn't matter what station you go on. It doesn't change that much. There's a lot of the same crap. Then you get the same rubbish that you're hearing the presenters and of the whatever show it is on there. And that's why I don't have a TV. I'm one of those guys. I got rid of the TV, and I've since found lots of other people that don't have TVs because they.
Well, yeah. Like the TV these days, it can be hooked up to the internet or a hard drive where you can just watch what you want. The proper ceremonial deplugging would be just cutting the aerial cable.
Well, yeah. Well, I got rid of my TV before you could do that with TVs, though. So, I have been off the TV for quite a while.
I know that smashing your TV is much more on camera, is much more dramatic than just cutting the cables.
Yeah, that's what Thanos did, wasn't it? He smashed his.
That was the initial how the 99% Unite people initially got together with their smashing their TVs videos, which to me was a sort of bit over dramatic, but I got their point.
I really appreciated it when I saw it because I thought that's exactly why people can't think, because they're filled with lies, and that's what blocks your ability to see the truth. If someone tells you something and you don't believe it's true because you've been filled with all these lies, because you can't have two different ideas in your mind that contradict, both that are both you hold as truth. So I can't hold this as truth and that as truth if they're in contradiction, because that would cause insanity. And they know this. So what they do is they fill us with these lies so that it's very hard for us to actually receive the truth, because it causes insanity, and you have to push it out of your mind, and it would cause chaos in your mind. You can't put an acid and base together and not have a reaction, right?
You understand why your parents and grandparents called it the idiot box. I've also liked that meme where it's like, I used antivirus wipes on the TV, I lost all of the mainstream media.
Yeah, that's an idiot box. And then look at what's on there too. I mean, I don't know exactly what's on TV now, but I would imagine. I mean, it was pretty bad when I used to watch TV.
Yeah, I noticed with Melbourne going back to COVID or COVID normal now, that particularly 7 News has just resumed covering violence out in the community. It was still there during lockdown because criminals don't obey lockdowns. But yeah, it's just full of just violent assaults, killings, sexual assaults, and that the mainstream media is just back to all of that now.
Well, like nothing ever happened. Just pick up the ball and
we've lost you again there, Jarrad.
But fear does bring you down. It just brings you down, and everyone knows that. If you think about if you've ever been scared, does it lift you up? No, it doesn't. It brings you down, and they've always wanted to keep us down so they can be above. I mean, that's what it is. That's what the whole capitis diminutio is all about, which is a legal term, which is to diminish your capacity, which is what they do. And these people that are trying to now broaden the state's capacity over the people, because it used to be the state had power in the public realm, but never it was always trumped by the individual right. Now it's they want to come into your private capacity. They want to be able to come into your home, which is your private capacity, and who knows what they want to do. And I don't know if you saw in Manchester, they've got the military now, and there's a document that's available that you can look up as well, where they've suggested, but we've seen video footage of them doing it, but it suggested that they can bring the military into schools to basically force to assist in testing of all the children, and they do it without your consent, because there's they consider it that the consent's implied if you haven't sent a notice to the school to say that you don't give your consent to such a test or a vaccine. To implied consent, which has come out of the World Health Organization, they've released documents saying that if your child goes to school, you have implied consent, and that's one reason why I'd recommend people get their kids out of the school.
Well, they're going to use that with the vaccine rollout as well. Though children are going to be the last to be vaccinated, because we talked about briefly the vaccine rollout earlier in the show, because the Pfizer vaccine has been approved by the UK bodies, and so Scott Morrison and Greg Hunt had a press conference today where they were talking about, they basically said, we're not going to roll out that vaccine yet. We're going to see how the UK people end up once they've taken the vaccine. But they were asked about, are you going to take the vaccine? And they said, well, we don't want to jump the queue, but we do understand that if we take it, then people will have more confidence in the vaccine if politicians take it.
And we talked about this earlier. Pfizer, you look at their track record. You know, they just dump toxic waste in the waterways. They've been doing that for about 50 years, dumping, you know, dumping into the waterways just absolute toxic waste that's just filled. And it was only a few years ago that they actually did a massive cleanup of that waste, and it's waste from all the way back in, I think, was it
1971?
Yeah, so that's what they do. There was another one I think I shared with you. Give me a sec. What was the other one that I shared with you regarding Pfizer? You know, they paid the biggest. Okay, Pfizer pays $2.3 billion, but it will change the pharmaceutical industry. Okay, so the $2.3 billion. It's a record-breaking settlement that includes the largest fine ever levied in U.S. history. Okay, I think the fine was $1.3 billion. You know, that was in criminal fine. So the settlement includes $1.3 billion in criminal fines related to promoting the arthritis and mental pain drug Bextra for uses and does not. I think that's not written correctly in this article. Does not approved by the Food and Drug Administration, putting patients at increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. Pfizer voluntarily removed Bextra from the market in 2005. Okay, so, but this is all about the ethical character. This particular article is all about the ethical character of this company, and this is the company that wants to roll out a vaccine, and they want to roll out a vaccine without giving you any consent, and that's the big issue, right? Do I have a right to say no, and do you have a right to force something into me, but not be liable for the damages? Because that's what they're speaking about already. I think they've created legislation that's,
give them indemnity, which is not libertarian, as we were talking about before.
No, you know, they've been doing that. This whole, they've been shaping our minds with that idea. This whole lockdown, you know, shut your businesses down, but we're not going to be liable, because basically it's liability, right? It's like, well, we're not
like the government still hasn't admitted liability for their robo debt scheme, where they illegally, they pursued money to people using income averaging who didn't owe that. They said Stuart Robert, the government services minister, said, "Oh, it wasn't found illegal. Oh, we don't admit liability, but we've paid 1.2 billion back." And obviously, it's bad that a few people committed suicide related to it.
That's okay, isn't it? That's okay. Yeah, just like George Bush, you know. Yeah, let's let's make up a big lie. Then let's get millions of people die and suffer from it, and
this is the sort of I know why sort of pushing the black pill towards you, Nick, but this is the reality. Governments can exempt themselves from all moral codes and also exempt themselves from their own laws that they enforce upon other people. Like if a private business carried on the way that government did, they wouldn't be in business for very long. The directors would be in jail.
Yeah, and they would run out of money too, because the government can just take as much money as they like.
Well, they can just print it as well. Quantitative easing. As it's termed.
So with that $1 billion from the vaccine court, do we have any idea where that goes? Who does that get paid to, and where do them funds get distributed? Because that's a lot of money, and I know that was that one thing, but it's $40 billion over the last 10 years or something ridiculous, isn't it?
That's all tax dollars too. So we're liable for the damages of the vaccine company, the people.
But really, is that how it works?
Wow,
that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So the taxpayers pay the fine for the pharmaceutical company,
and they pay the exactly, all the money is paid by us.
Yeah. So
this
Pfizer vaccine, it has to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius, that's the coldest temperature I've ever heard of, and the side effect is that it gives you a 3-day hangover, and you're not a drinker, Nick. I'm not sure if you have drunk in your youth, but yeah, I know you're not going to take the vaccine, but it would give you your first hangover, hypothetically.
Well, a 3-day hangover, I mean, that just shows how bad that is for you.
And hangovers are pretty
100%.
awful.
That's just 3 days of feeling like shit, really. That's what they say. You're going to feel like shit for 3 days.
Yeah, and we don't know what long-term damage it's going to cause, and we don't know. We don't really know what it is because it doesn't seem to actually be a vaccine. They call it a vaccine.
Well, there's no disease to vaccine for.
Oh, there's graph here about the Pfizer vaccine. So the vaccine uses mRNA that provides the genetic code for the spike protein of the COVID-19 virus. Once the mRNA enters the body, the cells use the genetic code to produce the spike protein. Immune cells then recognize the protein, preparing the immune system to fight the coronavirus if it later infects the body. Routine administration, intramuscular injection, likely dose 2.
And if that was on the mainstream media, there'd be a fancy cartoon for all the grown-ups. And there'd be an expert there saying how important it is, and there'd be an old lady saying it and somebody else just to convince us to and that's what they do, right? But you've got different technology that's, it potentially could change your DNA and change who you are. It could affect your children. It's got nanotechnology in there. Okay, so what's that? What's going on here? Will they give us full disclosure on that? No, of course they're not going to give us full disclosure. But they're going to.
I think this is a time when you actually have to read the terms and conditions that you don't read when you renew your Apple software license agreement. This time you actually have to read all the various information and forms if you do want to get the COVID jab. Or one of them.
I don't know how this vaccine is smart enough that the protein, the cells will recognize a protein that hasn't been identified yet by any test or anything like that. So, the thing's smart enough to figure out what COVID is and vaccinate for it. So it's a miracle, really.
So I trust I trust my local bathtub meth chemist more than Pfizer. Well, they probably work underneath Pfizer, and Pfizer's the one at the top, and give that license.
Yeah. We're coming up to 2 hours now, so we might finish where we started, and that we talked about Jazz before. Andrew Bolt is the first great escapee from Melbourne, though he's only moving to the Mornington Peninsula, which is still Metro Melbourne, so he's still in the lockdown zone. I mean, I'm in the Frankston Peninsula area. It was all still locked down under stage 4, stage 3. I can't believe going up to where you are on the border community, that rural community was under stage 3 lockdown. You're forced to wear masks. Like, there's going to be an outbreak in this sparsely populated rural area.
Yeah, that's it. We were lucky enough to have Tim's company on the weekend. Him and a few of the boys come up, which was bloody good time. We had a good time. Tim actually punched the shit out of me, so I'm not sure if that video's been released yet. Can
you share that video? The video with Tim having a scrap.
Yeah, no, Tim gave me a good hiding. He actually he did get a bit of help from the referee at one stage, who did wrap my arms behind my back while Tim continued to punch me.
It was rigged.
I wouldn't say rigged, but I would say stacked in your favour.
Kind of like the US election.
But yeah, hopefully we can get Tim to move up here. People need to get out of Melbourne. This lockdown.
Or out of Victoria, because don't forget,
out of Victoria.
Dan is not just the Premier of Melbourne; he's the Premier of Victoria, and he is popular again. And it looks like, well, based on current polling, he'd be re-elected in 2022. So the summer window.
Right. If he gets re-elected, I might boycott Victoria in general.
Well, we know it doesn't matter who votes which way. They know how to control that in such a way that
I'd still rather be in New South Wales, where Gladys, she's kept the economy open, has and successfully suppressed the coronavirus. So there are still severe limits on people's freedom. And there has been a positive case today of somebody who worked in hotel quarantine, but they're not overreacting like South Australia did. They haven't tracked any other cases.
It just takes a change in the script for it all to change, mate. And once the script changes, then it turns in. Look, the script changed in South Australia, and I just don't think that what's his name, the Premier of South Australia,
Stephen Marshmallow.
Yeah, I just don't think he was a very good actor, and he didn't sell it very well. And then they pulled the pin. He got given another script. It's all the script.
Yeah. Well, the New South Wales Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, has kept to the same script. I'll let him speak for himself.
This is a world pandemic. It's a 1 in 100-year event. So you can expect that we will have transmission from time to time, and that's just the way it is. We've got to accept that this is the new world order.
Mate, what more can you say? This is what this, like you said, Nick, this is what these people do.
New South Wales. You have to say that New South Wales has managed the New World Order the best, given that.
Exactly right. You've said it so well there. They've managed. They have managed the New World Order very, very well. The best possible. And I think that we need to stand up to the New World Order, and let's keep doing it. Let's keep fighting the good fight. You're doing a great job.
And when everybody on here makes a mass exodus from Melbourne, all these viewers and come to this area, we've got a good community here. Stick together.
Give me a job. I'll coach MMA at your gym, mate.
Mate, you can come in on the gym, buddy. You can come in with us, no doubt at all. We will work with you anytime. You're a legend. There's no doubt about that. We'd be honoured to have you.
Awesome.
Because you're out in city of Casey at the moment, Nick, which has no local elected representation still. You didn't get to vote.
No, because when they did, they were all laundering money and accepting bribe money.
Oh well, not all the councillors. There was one who had a cloud over him, and so they sacked the whole council.
Which one was that? There was more than one.
Two, I think there was.
Yeah, I think there's more.
There's two, there's three. Yeah,
there was some good councillors on that City of Casey council there who sadly lost their jobs.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But there
but it's
a
it just shows the system that you're still stuck with representation at your local level for another 4 years. You've got to deal with Andrew's government-appointed administrator.
Well, I don't follow any of their stuff anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. I just do what I want to do, keep my business going. I'm not wearing any of your crap. That's, and that's it.
Self-governing.
That's it. I cause no harm. I didn't do any harm to you. You leave me alone. But and that's it. And I think if we had that attitude, all of us, we went, let's just do what we know is right, and stop being in fear of the rules and the police. I mean, it doesn't help that the police are going around assaulting people in mass and detaining them for no reason and knocking on people's doors at midnight, like they've done to me, and they've turned up to my place 4 times, in 4 different occasions and in the middle of the night. But that's what they do. But I think people like us need to come together and other people that are like-minded and just start to have that grassroots community opposition to what's going on and just stand against it. And so we're not going to do it. That's it. We're not going, because if we have big numbers, there's not much they can do. They can't police big numbers. If they get us divided in all these little groups, and they end up controlling a lot of the people. And that's what it is. I'm hopeful. I'm a hopeful guy, Tim. Yes, I'm hopeful that we.
I'm hopeful as well. I know I sound a bit black pillish from time to time. I'm just stating reality. But of course, I want what you want.
And on a happier note, before we go, guys, Tim, you know Jimmy Hitter. Nick, I don't think you've met him yet, but Jimmy's my right hand man. He's involved in the gym and stuff as well. But he actually proposed to his fiance yesterday. You boys would have seen it on our Telegram group. and they're actually getting married under common law. So Mike Holt, we're going to Queensland next week for a bit of a holiday. Mike Holt's going to come down and perform the first common law marriage in Australia. So the whole thing will be done under common law. They're staying completely away from the government, and they're gonna keep their marriage, in the private. So that should be good.
Because I don't know if you've ever heard the American retired judge that talks about the marriage license and what it really represents. But to register something, register just means of the kings. So as soon as you register anything, you've just added, you just basically given it to the king or to the royal.
There you go.
That's what it means. Yeah.
There you go. So I think it's a good thing the common law website will promote it and put photos up and that, because it's being the first one in Australia, it's quite a big event. But I just thought I'd end it on a happier note. So congratulations, Jimmy and Crystal Hitter. Yeah,
and well done, Jimmy.
Yeah, go Jimmy.
So we shall see what by the end of this weekend what Dan's COVID safe summer looks like, and how the two different freedom rallies go. Obviously, there's the Saturday one, which we talked about, which is by the Melbourne Freedom Rally Group, and then there's the one by the Convoy Liberation, which is being promoted as COVID compliant and police approved, and that's part of the nationwide Freedom Day, December 6th. So there's one in Sydney, Cairns, Canberra, Adelaide, Perth, and Hobart.
Are they all COVID compliant? All of those particular ones that are on that day?
I'm not sure.
I'm actually going to be in Canberra.
The Sydney one actually says it's a police-approved event, yes. I think actually that's the one that Thanos is speaking at.
I'm actually going to be in Canberra Sunday morning. So I'm at Parliament House. I was actually taking my kids to Parliament House Sunday morning, just coincidentally. We're going there in the War Memorial and stuff. So 10 o'clock Sunday morning at Canberra, we'll be there.
Not the real Parliament House, the other one. Not the old Parliament House, which is the real one, but the other building that they've...
And looking at this list here, the Brisbane People's Picnic is no longer on that. That looks to be a separate event now by the People's Revolution. Tricky Tritty. He's one of the organisers for it. I had him on my Wilms Front show last week. So that's a standalone event on. What does it say? On Sunday, 1 p.m.
What happened to Brisbane? Every other state jumped on board, and we had one standalone event at the same time. What happened? They didn't get along, or lost there?
Well, there's obviously in any political movement, there's going to be sort of divisions and fallouts, and the eventual people accusing each other of being, government operatives and all that sort of stuff. Everyone I don't like in a political movement is a government operative, police informant.
I just don't know why people can't just see the bigger picture and recognize.
Well, welcome to politics, Nick. I mean, you've spoken about your experience in the Liberal Party politics, whether it's a political party or activism. There's always these sorts of issues. Now I've gone on a downer now from Joseph's Good News.
Yeah. But on that note, I feel very lucky to have Neil Erickson in my ear every day. He's been down these roads before. And I must admit, every problem and every hurdle I've come across, he has warned me it was going to happen before it happened. I'm a stubborn bastard, so I listen to his advice and push forward the way I want to anyway, but he's been right every time. So, I definitely see some upcoming problems with some of these groups that I'm going to make sure that I am not involved in. So thank you, Neil, for the good advice. You're always right, mate.
Well, as I pointed out before, with all the Melbourne Cup Day freedom protesters wanting their fines heard in court, the courts are going to be clogged for years to come. What is it? Your hearing is not until mid next year for your charge.
I know, yeah, my extreme violence of pushing a police officer after I was assaulted by a whole bunch of them. Yeah, that one. Yeah, when I had a big mark over my head from one of them punching me.
Yeah. And remember that happened.
When one of Australia's best MMA fighters assaulted a police officer, he got pushed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
real
exactly.
believable story.
That's the whole thing. This is how much the police lie. Right, they will completely lie, and they work with the media. They said that I on every news, every mainstream channel said that I punched a police officer. Not true.
No, if you punched a police
don't forget,
officer, he wouldn't be getting up anytime soon.
You ran a virus denier meeting, anti-masker meeting, which was shut down by the police. That also happened as well.
Yeah, that happened as well. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but. And not only that, there was the the conspiracy cult, because I'm part of I run a conspiracy cult as well. So.
There was also the photo in the Herald Sun of the protest that you weren't at. Yeah, you getting arrested at a protest that you were never at. Yeah. I'm glad that we can laugh about it. Because
I'm
glad you can laugh about it. I find it funny. I'm glad you can too.
I think it's quite funny too, and I'm glad that we're having some joy out of it. So thank you.
So if you want to know what happened at the rallies on the weekend, don't watch 7 and 9 News that night. There'll be ample footage on social media. What's the best channel again? It's Marty Fawkner, isn't that the one?
He hasn't done much for a little while, but he has a lot of good stuff on there. He's got some really good videos on there. He will have videos, I'm sure, coming out for the next protest. I'm assuming he's going to be at the Saturday one. I hope so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we won't be there, unfortunately. We couldn't make it this time, so. The Proud Boys won't be at this protest. No Proud Boys will be there, I think. But we hope to be back on board for the next one.
Next time, mate. We'll see you there.
Yeah, we had a few things, Nick. We've spoken in the background, so unfortunately we couldn't make it. But yeah, we still got our support. We support 100%, and we'll be at the next one.
Oh, thanks, Nick and Jazz, for joining me tonight. And
my pleasure, mate. I apologise again for being late. Yeah. That's unlike me. I'm usually only 5 minutes late.
No, it's normally Dave that's late. Well, he's been absent the past 2 weeks. So we even didn't have a show last week because Dave took another week off, but he was back tonight. And also Stephen Wells was from the controlled free state of Western Australia now.
Well, I'll jump on board next week from Nimbin. I'll be in Nimbin for next week's Uncuckables, so excited. Cannot wait.
We will expect a blurry video image, not because it's poor quality, but just the smoke around.
That could be an issue. I won't deny that may be something we indulge in while we're away. So.
All right, good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Right. Thanks, Senator Slayer, for the super chat. I'll see you next week.
Cheers, boys. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. See you soon, buddy.
See you, mate. See you guys. Thanks, Tim.